All right, let's open up a cosmic cold case. Our prime suspect? Messier 79. Now, at first glance, it just looks like another pretty ball of stars, right? Well, don't let that fool you. This thing holds some serious secrets about our galaxy's violent past. So, here it is, Messier 79, or M79 for short. On paper, it's a globular cluster. You know, one of those super old, tightly packed balls of stars. We're talking 12 billion years old, sitting about 42,000 light-years away from us in the constellation Lepus. But here's where it gets interesting. Its location, its history, it's all wrapped up in a huge debate that could tell us how our own Milky Way actually came to be.
Okay, so let's start our investigation. We need to get the basic facts down first.
See, what makes this case so fascinating isn't just what M79 is, but where it's been. Its journey, the path it takes through our galaxy, that's the first big clue. It strongly suggests that M79 isn't from around here. It might actually be an immigrant, a survivor from a galaxy that our Milky Way ate a long, long time ago.
And that brings us to the first big piece of evidence. This cluster's really weird orbit.
So clue number one is its bizarre path. Astronomers call it a highly eccentric orbit. Now, forget what you know about nice, neat, circular orbits. M79's journey is totally different. It's this long, stretched-out loop that dives right towards the center of our galaxy and then gets flung way back out. That kind of motion just screams cosmic collision.
Yeah, the technical term is a real mouthful, radially anisotropic. But don't worry about the word, the idea is actually super simple. Think about it this way. Instead of circling the galaxy like planets do, M79 moves more like a bee. It flies straight to the hive and then straight back out. That back-and-forth travel is a huge red flag. It's not how things born inside the Milky Way are supposed to move.
So, what does this strange orbit mean? Well, it makes M79 a prime suspect for being part of a group called the sausage clusters. I know, funny name, but the profile is a perfect fit. All these clusters are thought to be leftovers from a dwarf galaxy that the Milky Way ate. And guess what? They all share this exact same kind of weird, stretched-out radial orbit. M79 just ticks every single box.
And the timeline for this whole thing? It's absolutely mind-boggling. We're talking somewhere between 8 and 11 billion years ago. This massive dwarf galaxy, the Gaia sausage, slammed into our young Milky Way. It got completely shredded, and its stars and clusters, including our guy, M79, were scattered everywhere. They're still out there, in the Milky Way's halo, tracing those same strange orbits even today.
Okay, so case closed, right? M79 is an immigrant from the sausage galaxy. Easy. Well, not so fast. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, another clue pops up that throws everything into question.
And this is where things get really tricky. Is M79 a genuine relic from that ancient cosmic smash-up? Or is its orbit just a weird coincidence, and the real story is something completely different? Something happening right in its own backyard.
This brings us to what's known as the Canis Major debate. See, M79 is located suspiciously close to this really dense patch of stars called the Canis Major overdensity. So, theory number one is that this is a dwarf galaxy, currently being torn apart by the Milky Way, and M79 belongs to it. But then there's theory number two, which says there is no dwarf galaxy. It's all an illusion, a trick of the light, caused by a huge warp in our own galaxy's disk, kind of like looking through a funhouse mirror and seeing things that aren't really there. And the argument for this galactic warp theory is pretty solid. One paper from back in 2007 basically said, hey, we can explain everything we see in the Canis Major region just by looking at our own warped and flared disk. You don't need a whole other galaxy to explain it. So, what's the verdict? Is M79 an ancient immigrant or just a local from a weird part of town? The jury is definitely still out on that one. But you know, while astronomers were arguing about these giant galaxy-sized theories, something incredible was hiding right under their noses, inside M79 itself, a totally different kind of mystery. So for decades, everyone's looking at the big picture, right? The orbit, the galactic neighborhood, but what was hiding in plain sight? Right there among all those stars. It turns out M79 is home to a record breaker, the single visually brightest star ever found in any globular cluster we know of, period. So let's meet this stellar celebrity. It's what's called a post-AGB star, which is just a fancy way of saying it's an old star in its final stages of life.
For years, this thing was so incredibly bright that astronomers just thought it was a star in our own backyard, way in front of the cluster. In fact, on deep photos, its light was so intense it just blew out the sensor. But the truly weird part is its behavior. Most stars like this pulsate or have a partner star, but this one, rock steady. No changes in its brightness, no changes in its speed, it's just there. And when scientists looked closer, they found another strange thing. The light coming from the star perfectly matched what's called a blackbody curve. Now, what that means, in simple terms, is that there's no dust around it. None. If there was dust, it would mess up that perfect curve. And that little detail, the missing dust, is a huge clue about what's going to happen to it.
And here's why that missing dust matters. Dust is the raw material a dying star uses to create one of those gorgeous planetary nebulas. So without any dust, this star's end is going to be, well, pretty quiet. It's not going out with a bang. No supernova, no big finale. It's just on a slow, one-way trip to becoming a white dwarf. And it's just going to fade away.
So where does that leave us? After looking at all the evidence, the weird orbit, the controversial neighborhood, the record-breaking star, what's the final verdict on Messier 79? Well, the truth is, this case is still wide open. The sausage connection looks really strong, but you can't just ignore what's going on in its local neighborhood. Is that Canis Major thing a real ghost galaxy, or is it just a trick of the light? And what about that faint halo of stars they found around M79? Could that be the final ghost of its original home? The investigation is definitely not over.
And that just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? I mean, M79 is just one of about 150 of these clusters orbiting our galaxy. And if this one seemingly ordinary cluster can hold so many mysteries, a violent history, a case of mistaken identity, a record-breaking star, just imagine what other secrets are hiding out there in those ancient balls of light, just waiting for us to find them.